Let's move in 11 through 20. We'll talk about the players and teams here. Also, don't forget to leave your comments, questions, and concerns down in the comments below. If you're just joining us 11 through 20 on YouTube, we'll have a mailbag answering your questions about these teams and these prospects going to these teams. Ricky, start us off.
Well, starting at mine, the Heat, that's who at 11. I had to find him on my spreadsheet. Keldon Johnson going to go to the Heat at 11. Then the T-Wolves at 12 going to go Brandon Clark, the forward from Gonzaga. Then at 13, the Lakers go Jackson Hayes, the center from the Texas Longhorns. Then at 14, the Celtics via the Kings. They'll go Kevin Porter Jr., a little bit of a faller this time in my mock. Then at 15, Pistons go Sekou Doumbouya, the forward out of France. Then at 16, the Hornets go with Kobe White, guard out of UNC. Nets at 17 go with Lewis King, the forward out of Oregon, quack, quack. And then at 18, the Celtics, via the Clippers this time, go with Trey Jones, guard out of Duke. Then P.J. Washington to the Spurs at 19. And then rounding it out, probably my biggest faller, but I don't think it's my biggest faller. I think Kevin Porter Jr. might be, but Nassir Little out of UNC going to the Jazz at 20.
It's Nassir Little because you had Nassir Little in your top 10. I think Kevin Porter was like number 9 for you. So Kevin Porter probably
Nassir at 11 last time.
Yeah, so I think Kevin Porter probably only felt like 5, where Nassir falls
Kevin Porter
9.
was at 6.
Yeah.
What are you pointing out?
Just as idea, I'm tossing him something later.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
No, I
thought you were talking.
Kevin Porter Jr. because I just looked at it at 6. I had Nassir at 11.
Nah, I had one of those like bing moments, and I was like, oh, maybe this would be helpful. But I don't know. We'll
Take
see
us
later.
your 11 through 20.
Sure. At number 11, I've got the Heat going with Sekou Doumbouya. At number 12, I've got Nassir Little fall into Timberwolves, and I know I've had a lot of history with Nassir Little this year. I don't like his play as of late.
You threw out the B word earlier on this draft season.
He played like trash against Virginia. He just was absolutely useless. So he may keep falling, regardless of his body and his potential at the NBA level. I really dislike him at this point. At number 13, I've got the Lakers going with Rui Hachimura. At 14, I've got the Celtics taking Bol Bol because it's a freebie pick. At 15, I've got the Pistons taking Kobe White. At 16, I've got the Hornets taking Nickeil Alexander-Walker. At 17, I've got the Nets taking Brandon Clark. Loving it. 18, I've got the Celtics going Bruno Fernando. And 19, I've got the Spurs going KZ Okpala. And round out at number 20, I've got the Jazz taking Jonte Porter.
Yeah, big faller there was Kevin Porter, who we didn't even talk about, or who you even mentioned, because he's not even in this section for you. My 11 through 20, we have Heat taking Nassir Little, the T-Wolves taking Sekou Doumbouya, 13, the Lakers taking Jackson Hayes, 14, we'll take the Celtics taking Bol Bol, 15, the Pistons taking Kevin Porter Jr., 16, the Hornets taking Nickeil Alexander-Walker, 17, the Nets taking Brandon Clark, 18, the Celtics taking Trey Jones, 19, the Spurs taking Kobe White, and 20, Jonte Porter being selected by the Utah Jazz. Boys, we'll start off first with Sekou Doumbouya, since Dave has him going to the Heat, and we'll work our way down. Pretty much with Sekou, I mean, he's a guy who is extremely raw, 6'9", international player. There was talks about him being a top 5 pick before this season. Hasn't shown us a ton, but in this whole draft where we're talking about lack of stars, lack of potential, and more role players, is he an intriguing player to you just because he has that rawness?
Yeah, I mean, he's someone who absolutely can mold his game around some of the greats in the NBA right now. He's got good length. He's got good size. He's 6'9". I know we'll get official measurables later on, but somewhere around 6'9" with a 7-foot plus wingspan. So absolute monster. He can play the 3 or the 4. He's decent with the ball in his hands. Just defensively, he is someone who is just a nightmare for people, and I get it because the knock will be, well, in Europe, he's playing against less athletic people, and it's easier to lock them down one-on-one. And that may be true, but that defense is going to carry over. He just has a skill set for it. Offensively, his game still has some room to develop, but he's a player, and I love the pick for the Heat.
Go on, finish it. No.
I love the pick for the Heat because I think this is a team where they've got a lot of threes right now, and they're kind of spraying them out. Like, we're seeing Justice Winslow playing his point guard, and that's probably the best we've seen Justice Winslow play in his career at this point. Josh Richardson, obviously, they locked him up long-term now. He's playing really well, being that 3-and-D player. Not maybe a star on a team, but he's a very good 2-piece or 3-piece. So I think that Sekou could lock down the 4 for them moving forward. Right now, they're rolling with James Johnson, who he's a good player. He's older. He's just not been very effective in their system. He's not a needy player, which is probably good for them, but I think Sekou can fill in that 3-4 tweener role and absolutely come and contribute. And who would you rather have to teach this young kid how to play basketball? I mean, I love the Heat organization as a whole.
Well, and the thing that I pulled up an article here from CBS where they were talking to his agent. I'm not even going to try to butcher his agent's name.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say his agent. This is the quote he had.
Oh, yeah.
This kid is growing, probably going to stand at 6'9", 6'10" in a few months. He's perfect NBA player who can play the 2, the 3, the 4. Then ranging from Nicholas Batum, Rudy Gobert, Evan Fournier to Clint Capella, the list goes on. And he even said this is probably the most exciting player I've ever gotten my hands on to. So, I mean, for me, my biggest question, I even asked you, Dave, was, is he coming over right away?
Yeah, and I think the answer is probably just because he is a prospect who would definitely benefit from playing in the NBA, being on that training schedule, gain those trainers to work specifically for him, condition him. I think the one big thing with Europe, a lot of people don't realize, is how many games they play in a year. People are starting to get that from what happened with Luka, where I think he played like 90-something games in a calendar year, basically, or just over a calendar year. You know, he didn't have a chance to really develop his body or grow. People gave him shit about his conditioning, even though he's playing every night and he's traveling all over Europe. Like, it's the thing. So I think with Sekou, him being able to really focus, come over, and get that benefit of working with professionals in the NBA, that's the best way he can grow. See, absolutely.
And for me,
I'm going to interject.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Bona Ndaye.
Oh, he's trying to pronounce.
I think that's his agent's name.
Someone's going to tell us we're wrong. I'm
Ndaye.
I say, thank God we have someone watch our videos. Yeah. Who knows pronunciation?
I think it's Bona Ndaye.
Okay.
Not going to try it. But there were 3 teams that I could have had Sekou go to. The first one was you, the Heat.
Yeah.
The only thing I was looking at is Keldon Johnson was still there for me. And
fair.
he is number 1 off the board at that point. Then it was the T-Wolves. The only thing is I don't know yet who is going to be that T-Wolves coach. So it's hard for me to say whether they'll go with a college player or an international player that they could work with.
Does the coach matter or does the GM matter in that
I think
point?
it's the coach. The coach is going to be working with the kid day in, day out.
But if the GM believes in the talent, then does it matter about
there
the coach?
needs to be then a conversation between said coach and GM.
We've seen coaches tank people's.
And if you
don't have a, I know, but I'm just saying.
No, I'm not saying Minnesota does. I'm just saying. Like,
I'm just saying,
that
like that's a conversation that needs to happen between the coach and the GM. Then it was Boston. Like Boston could be a team that says, "Screw it, I like wings." We know we got Brad Stevens. Brad can work with them, but I look at it and I go Detroit, where they are a team where. I mean, they've got Blake and they've got Andre Drummond, which is kind of like they're in a situation of like they could push for like the lower end of the
Blake's
playoffs
doing everything
in the
he can
East
to drag these bums into the playoffs.
But I look at it and I go, with a coach like Dwayne Casey, like that is one where you can give him a guy like Sekou Doumbouya and just be like, hey, Dwayne, mold him into what you want. Yeah. Mold him into that 2, 3, 4. Here, we're giving you a piece of clay to mold.
He gave up on Stanley Johnson, which is kind of impressive to me. So I don't know about that. I mean, like I like Dwayne Casey. I think that the Raptors have done an awesome job developing talent while he was there. I don't know if I give him all of that credit. I mean,
Stanley Johnson though is a player that he'd been in the league since he was 19, and this year was
a defensive standout prospect, the same as Sekou. He's someone who has the ability to be great, but he had a great wingspan, good body size.
The thing I just don't think Stan John is.
I'm not saying they're equal prospects. I'm saying, where was Stan John drafted?
8.
Yeah. So we're talking about someone who's drafted higher than him, and you're trying to tell me that we actually got to see Stanley Johnson play in college, where we're watching Sekou play in a B tier Euro League. So I'm just trying to set the expectations right. If he gave up on a player like Stan John, who had 5 years in the league and could never progress to a decent shot.
The thing you have to understand is, for most of Stanley Johnson's career, Stan Van was his coach. This is the only year him and Dwayne.
He's still a terrible player, is my point.
Like him and Dwayne, this is the first year they've been together.
I just don't know that Dwayne Casey is the growth messiah for young talent. I don't know that he is that ultimate guy to do that.
However, you can make the argument. You look at a guy like Pascal Siakam, who did a lot of growing under Dwayne Casey. And I know
his biggest jump.
I know he took the big step under Nick Nurse, but that's also due to, I think, the ability of Nick Nurse having the idea of moving good old
Serge Ibaka
to the 5 and then having Pascal Siakam take on a larger role. And also
Nick Nurse was there last year. as well.
Yeah.
So
no, I'm not saying
like,
it's all on Dwayne Casey.
I'm
not saying it's all on Dwayne Casey, but I also don't think you can write that off.
I think Dwayne Casey is a solid coach. I don't know how much credit I want to give him for all the player development under him.
I'm not giving him all the player development for Pascal Siakam. I'm just saying Pascal Siakam, in a very similar light, long wingspan, very athletic,
very new to basketball,
took a very great growth, and maybe Sekou can take that growth.
Yeah.
The one thing that I wanted to go to, and this will just go into another player that we're going to talk about, is Sekou. I think we can compare a little bit to Brandon Clark, both athletic, both great defenders, both guys with long wingspans. Ricky, you have Brandon Clark going above Sekou Doumbouya. Mm-hmm. Was it a team fit that you liked, or was it a prospect fit?
I wanted a 4. I was looking for a big.
Well, they're both 4s.
Well, with Sekou,
similar size too. I think Sekou might even be a little bit bigger.
Even like his agent said in that clip, like he's a guy to me where he's not going to just be a 4. He's going to be some 4, some 3, maybe some 2.
I think that 2 is a little bit of a
stretch,
hype.
but
no,
like
it's agent hype.
I see him more like, for me, Sekou, I look at him more as a 3 compared to a 4 in the NBA. Like when I look at him, I'm looking at him as a small forward, or compared to a power forward. So for me, I looked for a 4 for the T-Wolves, and that's Brandon Clark. Like for me, Sekou was a 3.
All right, that's fair. I think that Brandon Clark for me is a very different prospect than Sekou. Offensively, he's gifted. He's aggressive. He's a little bit raw at times going to the rim, which is kind of fun. He does have an awesome spin move, though. Mm-hmm. Credit to him. It's his one move, but he does do it well.
Yeah.
I like his aggression with the ball in his hands, being able to drive and slash.
Well, I think that's one thing. And you're talking about Sekou, right?
No, I'm talking about Brandon Clark.
Oh, okay. I think they're different players. That's for sure. But I think Brandon Clark and them both bring the idea of both very athletic guys, both guys who have very long wingspans. And yes, I think with Brandon Clark, the idea of him being more of a rim protector is fair. However, I still think they're going to guard similar positions, because Brandon Clark, I think, has the ability to guard 3 and 4s. And I think that maybe he does become a rim protector when Cat's not. However, how much of his size, Brandon Clark's, going to affect his ability to be a rim protector at the NBA level. So I think his defensive abilities might have to change, because Brandon Clark, I think, is 6'8".
He's 6'8", putting up 3 blocks a game.
Mm-hmm. But it's also against
over a steal.
What players?
It's Gonzaga, I get it. But he did this at San Jose State before transferring in, and that's the thing. He had 17 points last year at San Jose State, 16.8 this year. He's proving the consistency's there. The growth is there from a percentage. His shot has gotten better. Yeah. Last year shooting 59% overall. This year 68%. Well, I think his scoring is leaps and bounds ahead of what Sekou is. That's the thing, and I get it. He's an older player as well.
That's what I was going to bring up.
But I mean, that's just they're in different categories. I think Brandon Clark has a really special skill set, and I see him as someone who can continue to rise up this board as we hit tourney time.
I just think he's a little bit limited, and I think that's where you look at Sekou, and Brandon Clark might have more of a. I don't really know if he has more of a defined role, but at least more of a defined path to the NBA and where he's going to make it. Yeah. However, I don't think, and Sekou doesn't, but I think that's because Sekou's more raw than Brandon Clark is.
Yeah.
And Brandon Clark adds a shot, and a more consistent 3-point shot, because it's not the best right now. He's not
hitting at a great, less than 1 a game.
Yeah, he's not hitting at a great rate. Yeah. But if he's able to hit it at a higher rate, then I think he could become a very good stretch forward. If you're pairing him next to Cat, he could become possibly a better rim defender than Cat. I don't think he'll be guarding 5s, and Cat's still going to be. I don't think Cat's going to be. Well, Cat's averaging near 3 blocks a game.
No, he's not.
Cat.
I can't believe that number. I'm looking it up.
Maybe not 3, because I think that's a little way too high. But I think he's probably near 2.
He's putting up 1.8.
Yeah, 1.8. 3 was way too high.
That's 3 blocks a game.
Yeah. But 2.
Did he have 3 blocks in his last game?
He's hitting 5 in a game, because he almost had a 5x5, I think. Anyways, I just think that
he's had 2 6s actually and a 5.
That's what I was thinking. I was just overhyping him.
Yeah, I know you've been riding the Cat train for years now, Sean.
Yeah, I just think that I would always have Sekou above Brandon Clark just because of that ability to grow.
Yeah, I just think that after watching the reaction of what's happened to Luka and then Frank and Mario Hezonja, you have to be very careful with European players, and
because they're not all the same.
Well, they're not all the same, but also, what's your expectations of them coming in? Luka was the most polished player in European history at his age.
Yeah,
no one's even close to that. So him being able to translate right away, I didn't have a concern in the world. But Frank was a player who was a role-playing two-guard in Europe, and he very much had the skill set, but it was such raw talent. And it was like, okay, this is going to take time. Sekou, I think, is going to be the same thing. He will take time to develop. I think Brandon Clark can step on a team and be a backup player and play 15 to 20 minutes a night, no problem.
And or I think you Kristaps and you just get drafted by the Knicks and
Doumbouya. That's the thing. So but before he got, after he got booed, before he got traded, he was a very good player. Instant impact.
Well, and one thing too, you look at where those guys were drafted. Fournier was drafted 20th. Frank was top 10. Luka obviously top 10. Kristaps was top 10. I think having Sekou a little bit further back out will lower the expectations.
Hopefully,
a little bit.
And
Luka,
also, mine was top
5.
Luka's top 5. Yeah,
I think it depends on where those guys go exactly. Well, and also Kristaps is top 5, but where you go team-wise, because if you're going with the T-Wolves, and this team might be looking to make a playoff push, Brandon Clark might be a little bit better.
That's
if you're going to the Heat, the Heat are always looking to make the playoffs, but also their idea might change.
They're a bunch of deep middlemen, though.
And also, this might be their last shot to get a guy who might have star potential, so maybe they play off a little bit differently because that 2021 pick is not their pick. Anyways, let's move down the line. Next up is Nassir Little. I have him at 11 going to the Heat. Dave, you have him going to the T-Wolves at 12. And then, Ricky, you have him all the way down at 20. So let's talk about Nassir Little while you guys have him down so low. What are you doing to the spreadsheet?
I am adding things for later so that I can remember when we upload what to tag and what we talked about.
Gotcha. All right.
Just a bit of housekeeping on that side of the table.
I was
behind the scenes.
I thought he was going to cut it out. Anyways, Nassir Little, we'll talk about him. I have him going 11. You have him going to T-Wolves. Ricky has him going all the way to 20 at the Jazz. I just think he's still, yes, he hasn't performed as well as he has, and obviously the Virginia thing left a poor taste in your mouth. However, you look at the games before that. You look from January 15th to February 9th. He was shooting 51% from the field. That was on 52% from twos. He was averaging 11 points per game. He had about 6 boards a game, assist a game, and he was shooting 80% from the line at about 4 attempts per game. So I was really liking what I saw from Nassir Little. Obviously, definitely did not like what he did against Virginia. Was playing off the floor. He only played 2 minutes in that game. And that's a huge red flag when you're going up against the number 1 team and you're not playing that level. I know he got injured, but again, how well can he play up? He didn't return in the second half against Wake. He was a game time decision today. But the thing with him is I just think that he's too physically gifted not to go that high. I think you look at the Heat, kind of the same thing with Justice Winslow. I don't think Justice lit it up in college, if I'm correct. I think he lit it up a little bit more than Nassir has, but I think he is a similar player in that vein of size, potential-wise. The growth is there, the ability to grow is there, and I think that the Heat wouldn't pass that up just because he does have that growth. But Ricky, you clearly have a lot of teams passing him up. What have you not seen on Nassir Little to give him that credit?
For me, it's one of the things where I look at Nassir Little, and a little bit of this was like with Dave with John Morant to the Bulls, where I had Nassir end up with the Jazz, where the Jazz to me are a team where, look at who they took last year. They took Grayson Allen, a guy where everyone's rating him as like, he's a dirty player. Oh, he's got this mentality of him. Won't be a good pro. He's a dirty player. They go ahead and draft him. Where they will be a team that goes, you know what? We don't care what people think about you. We like what you bring to the table. And our coach, Quinn Snyder, can work with you. Our guys will work with you. We are going to make you
Unfortunately,
an
Quinn
NBA
Snyder
pro.
hates Grayson Allen,
exactly.
So that's not working out so well.
And that's a thing of like Sean said, who's making the picks, the GMs or the coaches. For me, just everything about Nassir Little, and he can have, you can have the body, and this is any sport, but if you don't have the basketball IQ out there, like Dave, you were mentioning before the podcast, I know, where it's like you're watching the Virginia game, and he's focusing on but he's focusing on the ball so much to where his guy is just like, he loses sight of his defender, and he loses where his defender is.
Yeah.
And that's not good. It's all these mental errors. Like an article that we had thrown out when you were on the PTP and did the big board with me was, there was one practice where, and I'm assuming this would be a few, but this is the one that was documented in the article, where they stop practice. Roy Williams goes, all right, where are you supposed to be? And Nassir
you brought this up last time. I don't think it's that important. I think it's a kid that's young and he's getting used to a college team. Like, he has a fault. And like, that's a fault.
And that's the thing.
I don't think that means it's unchangeable.
Me drafting, and that's with a big board is me drafting. I would pass on him. Like, I would be like, how much? Because with every prospect, you got to go into.
I mean, what have you
seen?
First
off, what's the ceiling?
What's the difference between him and Louis King?
For me,
for the only other person that is Louis King.
I have no questions about whether I can coach up Louis King. I have no questions. Nassir Little.
What article have you read that has quotes about Louis King? Who's talking about Louis King? No one cares about Louis King.
No,
what have you heard about Louis King?
That's not my point. My point is we're not hearing anything about Louis King.
Louis King plays a little closer to Justice Winslow than Nassir Little does. I'm just tossing that out there.
That's fine.
The point is we're not sitting there looking at Louis King talking about, and it could be just the stage of North Carolina plays into it as well. When you go to a school like North Carolina, the spotlight's going to be on you a little bit because of your coach, because of the pedigree of that team. Let's be honest, the Pac-12 this year in college basketball, it's not good. I was hearing today on CBS Sports, they're like, hey, well, what's the odds that 2 teams get into the tournament? And the analyst they had on was like, yeah, maybe 2 might be the most that this conference gets in, which is not good because if you have a regular season champ and a tournament champ, there's your 2 automatic bids. With me, Louis King, I see a guy that, yes, I'm going to have to coach up. Is he NBA ready? No. He's kind of like what we saw out of, in my case, a Miami and Lonnie Walker of like, I see things that I like there athletically, and I can coach him up. With Nassir Little, I don't see the coaching up because it's just, maybe you can call it my bias, but if I was a GM, I would pass on Nassir Little because I wouldn't be the guy to get the best out of him. My coaches wouldn't be the best to get, or be the ones to get the best out of him.
I think the Lonnie Walker thing's a little bit different because Lonnie Walker was.
He also had an injury.
He had an injury, and Louis King dealt with injuries too. But I think the biggest thing with Lonnie Walker, at least that we saw, was he had a smoothness to his game that really started to show a little bit later. And I think Louis King's super raw.
Lonnie Walker's last game he actually played in the NBA, he was 0 of 10.
Yeah, well, he
got smoked by Golden State.
Yeah, he hasn't been good. He was also down in the G League a little bit too.
Yeah, he's played in 6 games this year.
And he has to deal with his injury, so I'm not really sure.
I'm just the 0 of 10 game was just. Yeah, I just started laughing at that. I feel bad for him.
My thing with Nassir Little is the body's there, and I think you can't take one quote and not actually know about him. We'll get to interviews and whatever comes out of interviews about what he is personality wise.
The private workouts, all that stuff's going to build it up. I think with Nassir Little, you just have to understand, or you have to hope. He's a hope case. He will be a better NBA player than a college player. He has the body to be an NBA level defender. There's nothing about him that says that you should have a concern for a long-term injury. This ankle thing is a minor one, so don't get too concerned. For me, it just turns into, he's not a full-on bust. He's not Quentin Grimes bad. Like, I get it. We have the early board where, you got your, ESPN top 100, and you're looking at him and like, that dude's going to be a stud, that dude's going to be a stud. It's okay to get him wrong. And Nassir Little, the reason you were at the top of the board was not for what you had been able to do in college. It was or not for what you had done in college because you hadn't played yet. It was very much you were able to dominate a worse level of competition, and then in some of the games where you were able to play against other young prospects, you were actually able to shut them down. But how much of that was lack of effort on their part? So I just want to say you're hopefully going to be a better pro than you are a college player.
I think another thing that we could throw out there too is we're giving Cam Reddish the benefit of the doubt that he's playing with Zion Williamson and RJ Barrett, and maybe he's not a great fit with them. Maybe Naz Little is just not a good fit with UNC. I mean, that could be it. It's not that he's not coachable. It's just not that he's not talented. It's just he might not have the right spot for him.
Got an old man coach and old man personality. Yeah,
and maybe that's just not good for him. And I don't know if the Heat are going to be the right place for that. I don't know if T-Wolves are going to be the right place for that. Pelicans, if he goes out in the top 10, is going to be the right place for it. But maybe he just needs to get away from all of that. And if he's going to be top 15, I would be shocked if he doesn't come out. Last guy we're going to hit until we get to the Lakers and Spurs is going to be Kevin Porter Jr., a guy that was in our top 10 for the past 2 mock drafts, got suspended indefinitely, then has been able to come back, but has been dealing with an injury and has not looked good.
Nope.
Dave, you have him falling all the way to 21, so we won't talk about him here, but we won't talk about him there. We'll talk about him here. Why Kevin Porter falling all the way to 21 from pretty much a top 10 pick before.
We talked early in the season about Kevin Porter's itch factor, and the fact that he had not played many games after that, we talked about how that was going to protect him.
Yeah.
That it could only get worse if he came back, and that's exactly what's happened. He's come back. He's not looked as sharp. He's not looked as smooth on the court with the ball in his hands. His shots aren't dropping the same. I think a lot of Kevin Porter's game, will need to depend on his ability to land those shots and get to the line. That's, we always want to model him after a great star, and right now it's Harden for him, which is, obviously off the charts. There's zero chance he gets there, but if there's a player he's tried to mold himself after, it might be a James Harden. I just have a lot of concerns now that I'm watching him play more. There's more holes to his game, and if he can't get back to where he was to start the season, which, again, even at that point, it was a lot of potential. He wasn't putting up gaudy stat lines or anything in college. It was just, I see everything I liked in his game, and that first batch of games that he was able to play before he was out, I was like, okay, this guy could totally translate. And now that I'm watching him more, there's more tape, there's more issues, there's more concerns. I don't know that he falls as far as he does in mine. I think this was very much, I'm reacting to what I'm seeing right now.
Well, and for me, the big thing is, and I know it's not all about stats, but I'll read a stat line. The last game he came back for, which was the February 13th game, only 10 points, 4 of 12 from the field, 1 of 3 from beyond the arc, which, let's be honest, the most threes he's ever taken in a game was against Texas Tech, and he went 2 of 7 in that one. 1 of 2 from the line, and then he's on par with his 5 rebounds, his 2 assists, and I just think for me, let's see how the rest of the year plays out. You hit it perfectly. This is even on my part, I feel like it's an overreaction. And for my mock draft, I looked at it, and where I have him going to could be possibly the best place to go to, and that's the Boston Celtics. You look at that wing depth that they have, and he can kind of be like a Jaylen Brown situation. How much did we rag on Jaylen Brown coming out of college?
Where are his minutes going to come from?
Well, and that's the thing. For me, I think he is a developmental of hey, really? I don't have to come out there and play right away because you've got the guys. They can sit there and kind of coach him up a little bit and work on him with what he's good at, what he needs to do at the next level.
Attitude issues, perhaps. He's got, whatever those extracurriculars.
Celtics have bullets in the chamber. They can take some, and the Celtics, they can take some chances, and if it doesn't pan out, they're still, if they still have Kyrie, they
could just Jabari Bird him away.
Yeah, basically.
I think my thing with the Celtics
RJ
is,
Hunter.
Yeah.
There's a bigger bullet to shoot, and that would be Bol. So that's why I don't have Kevin Porter going there. Yeah, no. I'm just saying, for me personally.
Yeah, for the ones that didn't check out 1 through 10, I'm saying he's off my board.
Even for Dave, too, with the Celtics, he hasn't gone Bol, too, just because I think that's an easier bullet to swallow because, he was already coming in before, we looked at our 2 early mock draft, not just before before recording this, and Bol was, in top 3, I think, for 2 of us.
I had him at 10, and you had him at...
You're talking the way too early?
Yeah, way too early. I think you had him maybe off your board.
I had him at 3.
I had him off my board. My bad.
Dave 10 and I'm at 3.
But I think Bol has shown his talent a little bit more, and he's just a guy he's also a guy that's just more unique than Kevin Porter.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing with the Celtics is you have an easier shot with Bol over Kevin Porter. I have him going to the Pistons just because I look at the guard situation and I really don't know what they're going to do there. And maybe Dwayne Casey sees a little bit of DeMar DeRozan in there. Just because DeMar wasn't a great shooter and obviously turned into one of the best mid-range shooters we've seen in a very long time, and they don't really have a guard who can score.
What are you talking about?
Let me put it this way.
Reggie can only score.
They have Reggie who can score, but I'm saying score and actually help the team.
Be a plus out there.
That's what I'm trying to say. Score and be a plus at the guard position. So I think that might be something that you can look at with Kevin Porter because he's also not a guy you need to start right away if you're taking him this low because he's dealing with the injuries, dealing with the suspension. You can build him up into something coming off the bench, and you still have Luke Kennard, you have Reggie, you have Blake, Andre Drummond. I think that's something that you could work him into would be a starting role. And you got Svi Mikhailuk as well. So I think Kevin Porter is an interesting case, and I think he's a guy that's probably going to rise up, right? Because
if he can get back on track, yes. I'm seeing right now like I said, the more tape I see, the unhappier I am with him. But if he can catch that groove again, absolutely.
I think it might be tough for him to catch his groove at USC, but if he comes in the combine and shows out, I think he's going to jump.
Very good chance.
Let's move now into the teams. We have the Lakers and Spurs. Ricky, you want to talk about them because I think there's some interesting players there. We both have Jackson Hayes, you and I, and Dave, you have Rui Hachimura there. I like the Hachimura pick. I think the Hayes picks makes a little sense just because you're going to be losing JaVale McGee, I believe, after this year because of contract. Tyson Chandler, but at least he's not going to be signed. Tyson Chandler's not going to be signed as well.
Correct.
Jackson Hayes fits a very similar role, but much younger. And that's why I think the pick would be interesting for the Lakers.
And this one is interesting because it's kind of the opposite of what my mindset was with the Knicks. Remember the Knicks? I didn't go Ja, I didn't go RJ because I am positive that Kevin Durant's going to go there. Well, the thing here is, am I positive I'm going to get an AD trade done? And am I positive the Pelicans, with their new GM, are even going to want to trade with me? Are they going to want to send it to me? Because, Dave, now all 29 teams are on the list. The Bulls even have a shot at AD. So, I mean, with me, I just look at their weakest position, and it's the center. And if Jackson Hayes is still there, I ain't going to be very stupid if Magic Johnson isn't personally walking that up to the podium himself to make that, to have Adam Silver make that announcement. But, however, Rui Hachimura, if he's there, I would really like that for the Lakers, too.
Yeah, for me, it was just I had Rui fallen because of his age and because of his upside, because of his lack of an exact fit. But on a team like the Lakers, when they're selling the farm to get Anthony Davis right after this, it makes perfect sense to go ahead and get Rui Hachimura, a guy who can contribute day one to a team that has high aspirations.
And the thing I like most is the guy we threw out there that was a Laker, Kyle Kuzma. Well, hey, if I have to include him in an AD trade, why don't I get a guy that we just said is kind of like a Kyle Kuzma-like
He's an
player?
inside-out Kyle Kuzma.
Well, then how would a guy that's a little bit lower on all of our boards, Ricky, even into the 21 through 30 section, Jonte Porter play if he plays well at the combine? If he shows that he's past his injury, would that be a guy that the Lakers could look at?
If he's not slow as shit again.
Yes.
Like, you have to admit, his first combine, his first run, which I love that the NBA opened this up so you can go figure out where you're at, and then you can choose to return if you don't like where you're at. He was the worst on the cone drill. He was so slow. He lacks complete agility. And obviously, coming off of this injury, I don't know.
He's got to fix that speed coming off of a knee injury.
Right? Like, that concerns me a lot.
But what if he's quicker this time? Because he is a guy who has shown pretty good basketball IQ. He's a smart player.
He's smart. He's got a good shot. But I'm concerned about the game speed. And a team like the Lakers, where they are so up-pace, up-tempo, they kill the fast break situation. I don't think he's a good fit there at all.
Dave, what about the trailing three?
I love the trailing three. You know me.
I'm going to throw this out there, and I don't think we've ever mentioned this with Jonte, but let's say we get to the combine, which in my mind, he's not skyrocketing up my mock draft, up my big board until that time. But what if we get to the combine and he's still just slow because of coming off that knee injury? He could be a guy that if that happens, all right, I came off this knee injury. I'm going to go back to school for one more year.
No way in hell.
One more year.
No way in hell.
But that's the thing. If you are Jonte Porter, what is going through your mind? Let's say that happens.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be
you
terrifying.
You are slow. Do I go out there and maybe risk being a second-round pick? Or do I say, you know what? I'm coming off the injury. I'll come back to school for one more year to show you what you got. I'm just saying,
just because of contract control, I think that a team would take a shot at 27 through 30.
Even if he does, I don't think there's a way he falls out just because you want that money. You want to be able to say, I played in the NBA, and then just at least have a shot to get that money, because then you don't want that injury happening or re-happening in college.
Your family's already cursed.
Like 4 or 5 for individual siblings.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, I would not. I would go for the money at this point. Yeah, it's a safe bet.
I don't think he's going to fall out of the first round, but even if he does, I don't think he's going to drop out of the NBA draft. Let's move to the last team. It's going to be the Spurs. I have Kobe White going there. Ricky, you have PJ Washington. Dave, you have our boy KZ Okpala. You want to talk about the Spurs? Why do you think they're interesting here?
I think they're interesting because they're going to be coming off of an overachieving year, maybe, and they're going to be getting back.
Be picking a little bit higher,
and they're going to gain back their best point guard, which is awesome. I'm super excited that they're going to have DeJounte Murray back leading this team. He's someone who, all teams second defense, right?
Yes.
Absolutely phenomenal defensively. And if he's spent any time in his rehab, getting that shot back, dirty. They've added in nice pieces, complementary pieces with Bryn Forbes being able to develop into a great three-point shooter. I think that obviously the big key for this is KZ Okpala fits their need because Rudy Gay has been good and a nice piece, but you need to have a star or someone with that star potential to come up. And KZ can be a ball handler, he can be a scorer, he can facilitate, he can rebound. Like, he's got good size to him. I really like his game.
Speaking of DeJounte Murray, I saw this on Twitter, and I got to bring it up.
Yeah.
So NBA and ESPN posted a tweet about, this was the 5th or 6th of February, like, what big move should happen? And on the picture, it says AD to Spurs, and in the trade is DeJounte Murray. He quoted it and said, in all caps, "Take my name out this dumbass trade!" Exclamation points. Facepalm emoji.
That's pretty
at
good.
NBA at ESPN NBA. So like I saw that this week and I was like, all right, DeJounte Murray got a little bit of a Twitter game going on. For me, I just look at it and I go, all right, for them they've got 2 picks. And for me, both forwards are what I'm looking for. A 4 and a 3. And at this point in the draft, I looked at it and I went, you know what? There's a good section of 4s that could go here that might not be there when my pick rolls up at 29. And I just took the best 4 for me on the board, and that's PJ Washington. Like, not a lot of brain power went into this
My
pick.
idea with the Kobe White pick was just because you have DeJounte Murray coming back, but we haven't seen DeJounte be a scorer.
Right.
But we've seen him be a great defender. And I think Kobe White has shown consistently that he can score every single way for the Tar Heels.
I really like Kobe White.
And I think that if you're able to pair those 2 guards, that might be able to take you into the next future of the Spurs. Because, yes, you have DeRozan right now. You have LaMarcus Aldridge right now. You'll have him next season. But will that be the future of the Spurs? And will you want to still play inside out pretty much of attacking, and then hitting threes when it's important, and you're getting wide open threes because you're taking the less amount of threes.
Right.
In the NBA, you're getting open shots because you're working the ball around. We don't know how long Pop's going to be there, and maybe the idea is to gain a little bit of speed. And I think Kobe White brings that speed. He brings that scoring that DeJounte Murray lacks on a consistent basis. And I think that would be a nice guard pairing because, yes, you're still going to have DeRozan there next year, but that just gives Kobe White the ability to come off the bench, take pressure off of him. And then once DeRozan comes back, you could possibly move Murray to the 2. He can guard 2 guards and 1s and just have him guard the better guard.
Yeah.
And then have Kobe White at least handle the ball a little bit more and be a guy who penetrates and dishes out. I think he's a guy that you definitely need to watch out for. I think Kobe White has shown enough to be that other scoring guard for the Spurs and take them into the next future and next rendition that the Spurs will become, whether that's under Pop or not. I just really like that Kobe White pick. And I think you look at the Spurs, they have a lot of different options to go to, whether that be center. I really like the idea of Bruno Fernando there. Even a Naz Reid, I know you guys hate him, or a Jonte Porter to add to that 4 spot. A 3 for sure with KZ Okpala, that would be something that they could add to. There is no spot that they shouldn't really address just because the Spurs are a team that always uses their depth. They're always using their youth. And yes, they even dropped Lonnie Walker. We didn't even talk about him in this topic with the Spurs, but he's a guy
right down his shitty shooting. But yeah.
But I'm saying like for the Spurs spot, we didn't to bring him up. A guy they drafted last year. He's a guy that can even come in and add more scoring to this
Spurs
team
are slow starters. Like let's just say that. Like they do a lot of developmental kind of guys, but they do get a lot out of them. So I think that going for someone like a Kobe White, who I think is fantastic. He's one of the better players on that team, potentially better than Nassir Little. I'm just tossing out there.
That's fine. It's more about NBA potential, not
college
production.
Yeah, so I think I like Kobe because he can score multiple levels. I think he could be a combo guard like you suggested, potentially trading off between that 1 and 2 spot. So I would think that would be an interesting pairing. But yeah, the Lonnie Walker fit on that team, who knows? But I would not worry about that when planning this year's draft.
All right, that's going to do it for the 11 through 20. Any final thoughts?
No, none whatsoever.
Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you have any thoughts, we will feature it on the mailbag next week.